The following episode of Bread for the People is brought to you by Side Hustle Bread, Long Island's handcrafted artisanal bread company. Side Hustle Bread is a family-run virtual bakery that's bringing the neighborhood feel back to Long Island, one loaf at a time. Head on over to sidehustlebread.com for more information, upcoming appearances, and merchandise. My name's Jim Serpico, and this... Should I start with my name? Or should I start with this is Bread for the People? Do you like it like this? Welcome to Bread. Or do you like it like this? Welcome. Ready? Welcome to Bread for the People. Mine... Is there a script? Welcome to Bread for the People. I'm Jim Serpico. Today we have a very special guest streaming in all the way from Los Angeles, California, Anna Farberov. Anna, for those of you who don't know, leads PepsiCo's global venture in technology and innovation. Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for having me.
No problem. You know, Anna, I've been following you on LinkedIn, and your blog posts really speak to me. Even though you specialize in technology and working with startups, there's a lot of things you write about that relate to every business person. Me as a writer and as a producer and a baker, I find myself in situations where I'm constantly pitching or I'm listening to pitches, and I know that's a big part of what you do. Do you mind telling our audience what it is you do for PepsiCo? A lot of people think PepsiCo is the drink of choice at many chain restaurants. They think they just make soda, but it sounds like there's a lot more going on at the PepsiCo company corporation.
Oh, there is a lot. But Jim, I have to say, being, producer, writer, and a baker, that's probably one of the coolest titles I've ever heard. So I just hope I'll have such a cool title at some point.
There you go. Yes.
But yes, I think basically, PepsiCo, many people know, and they know the brands, right? We're kind of a beverage company, but we're also a food company with brands like Lay's and Cheetos and Doritos and, Quaker and many, many more. But what is also unique is that we actually make, move, and sell our own product, right? So we grow potatoes that will go into Lay's that then will be put on the truck and driven to a store, and a PepsiCo merchandiser will put them on shelf. So PepsiCo is very, very big and touches many areas.
When we spoke yesterday, we touched upon this a little bit. You mentioned to me that PepsiCo actually grows 8% of the world's potatoes.
Yes, grow or source. So some we grow directly, some with source with a network of farmers, but yes.
That's simply astonishing. And PepsiCo is tasked with figuring out how to move those potatoes, right? How to transport those potatoes, how to work with those potatoes and turn them into the things they need to turn them into. And in a way, that's where you come in.
Exactly. So kind of my role in simple terms is to be the matchmaker. So my role is to find different PepsiCo needs, right? Problems, consumer goods, industry needs, and then marry them with a technology that can potentially solve it, right? So when you find a need, a big kind of juicy problem to solve, and a technology, you put them together and you put them to the test in a real world environment to see if it works. And if it does work, then I would support both sides, both the big company and the small company, in trying to get this integrated and to work, right, as much as we can.
Right. So, when I first read about you, I thought about you as like the real life Shark Tank, where these startups are finding you. They know you've got some money to play with, and they're going to present to you. Is that somewhat accurate, or am I completely wrong?
So I think I'm nice. I'm not trying to poke holes, right? I think the mindset is very much, how do we create value together and how do we grow together? And if it's not the right thing, then very quickly we would be transparent and say, no, it's not working because of 1, 2, 3. And the approach is very practical. So it's not theoretical innovation. It's very practical innovation of, I have a need, I need to solve it. Let's do it together and figure out how we, find a solution.
So what comes first? Do you know you have the need and then you go out looking for these people that already exist? Or are people who've been working on this idea and executing on that idea for a number of years, and they've got the proof behind them to say, hey, our technology works, and then they seek you out? And if that's
Need
the case,
first.
how easy is it to get you? It's you first.
Need first. Yeah. Because when you think of, you're the expert in baking. If somebody comes to you with a shiny new toy and you don't really see the need, right? It doesn't matter how incredible the technology is. If it's not solving a critical need in your business, you're not going to do technology for the sake of technology because it's cool, right? Maybe if you have other objectives, if you want to have, perceived as a company that drives innovation, if you want to get PR from it, right? If you want to drive an innovation mindset in the org. So there's different levels and different reasons for companies to do innovation. We are very much, again, a pragmatic approach and applied innovation versus theoretical innovation. So it is, what is my need? And then what are my options to solve it?
Right. So you have somebody high up that flags the need and then comes to you and says, Anna, we task you with figuring out how we can produce French fries cheaper, faster.
Yeah. So
That kind of how it happens?
That kind of describes the guidance that I would get from somebody very senior. But at the end of the day, you cannot go to the startup ecosystem and to the people that actually develop the technology and tell them, oh, help me, make French fries better or make, potato chips better. You need to go kind of down the ladder and down the chain to the actual experts that will tell you, what, to make potato chips better, what needs to happen is X, right? So I need to find a way to sync my fryer with my bag seal maker because currently they're not aligned, and that causes a lot of delays in the speed of production. So you need to go down to the actual needs versus, I just want to be better. Because then you know what technology to find. If I know that I'm solving for matching my conveyor belt speed with my bag seal maker speed, then I can identify what are the different approaches to solve that need and then look for the right solutions.
Got it. So how long have you been doing this kind of thing?
4 years. So I was kind of employee number 1.5 on the team. So built it from day one, made a ton of mistakes in the first 2 years until we found a model that works for us. And, we've been replicating and growing since.
So when you were a young 9-year-old girl back in Israel, because that's where you're from, you're newly transplanted to Los Angeles. I think you mentioned you were there for only 3 months so far. Did you know you wanted to work in innovation and technology, and specifically PepsiCo?
I could not even spell innovation technology or PepsiCo. Israel in the 80s. I'm not sure we even had Pepsi at the time. But if I try, obviously I had no idea what I want to be, and I probably changed my opinion or aspirations every week or every month. But if I do try to look back, then I think it was always around kind of creativity, right? So innovation without being actually able to call it innovation, but how do I make new things? How do I really go out there and think of things that did not exist, right? How can I approach things in a more creative way? And then probably the second thing I was looking for is impact. I was always thinking big and not small.
Could you go into that a little more when you say I was thinking big, not small? What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think I was always trying to find ways to create an impact, right? To be influential in different levels. Even as a kid, I was running around and trying to solve things that I thought were problems, and many times other people did not even see them as problems. And I was trying to kind of touch as many people as possible, right? Or touch as many points of interaction as possible.
Got it.
Again, I'm trying to think of examples that are very silly when you think of it now, because again, I was young, right? But when I was about 12 or 13, I decided that I don't like the school plays. So the plays that the school would take us as part of the approved list of plays kids are allowed to see. So I just went to the person in the city, kind of, in the municipality that I lived at the time. And I told them, I don't like it. And then she said, you know what, you go ahead and you go and you watch plays and you come back with recommendations, which meant that I got a ton of free tickets to go and see plays. And I took friends with me and we came back with feedback and we told her, you know what, we like this, we don't like that. And that influenced kind of the future list, right? So the selection of plays for kids. So it's a very small, simple example when you think of it now, but at the time it made me feel super, important and if we go back to the impact, right? So I felt like I found a creative way, or I had a pain. I was trying to solve it in a creative way, and I managed to get an impact on my life, even if in a small way, and other children like me.
That's awesome. And it's so related to what you do now. I mean, something that you did that young is related, and you kind of figured out a way to harness that passion and find a way to make a living at it. So when you went to college, what path did you think you were going to take, and what did you study?
I studied philosophy, politics, and economics. So it's a program called PPE that exists in different universities around the world. I studied in Hebrew, the university in Jerusalem. Yeah, same. I kind of knew of what I don't want to study, and not many things really, really seemed interesting to me. And this one, I just heard a friend speak about it. I decided that this is what I would want to do. I just applied. I had no fallback option. So I had no kind of number 2, number 3 fallback options. Luckily, they accepted me. And that was the best experience in the world. I wasn't thinking practically back then. I was just looking to learn. So I love learning as much as I can. And the program, I mean, the interaction and I guess the nature those 3 disciplines come together was very interesting to me. Coming out of it, again, did not know what I want to do. And philosophy is not applied at all, right? There's no market for philosophers, and political science, the jobs available at the time were with the government, and that did not seem interesting to me as well. So I went to economics.
So it's safe to say, it sounds like while you were in college, you were living in the present and soaking in all the knowledge, and you were okay with that. You weren't obsessed with, oh my God, what am I going to find something? You were just taking it all in. Is that right?
Yes. I was not obsessed at all. I don't know if it was because I was overconfident or because I was just, overly stupid, not thinking about what that actually means and how this will influence my ability to make a living. But yes, I went into university thinking I just want to absorb and learn as much as I can. And with every new role that I take, or with new people that I meet, or with any new technology and new startups, which I meet on a daily basis, it's really about kind of how can I educate myself more? How can I learn new things? And I'm very passionate and driven.
That's just an amazing trait. Is that something you just developed on your own, or did you have people in your life that taught you about that? Because I think that most people don't realize that. I know so many people, I don't know if you do, that go through life, with a job so that they could make money. They're commuting an hour and a half each way, especially where I live. And probably now that you're in Los Angeles, there's plenty of people commuting an hour and a half each way. And they don't really find happiness in what they do for a living. So how did you figure that out?
Well, I'm probably privileged, right? Because I'm aware some people are working, some people have less choices. I'm very fortunate to have a choice, and that I can select the job that actually, I'm happy to do, and it fulfills me, and I feel the growth, and I would, I just enjoy, right? Some people do not have that opportunity. But within the people that do have a choice, or within the small choices that each of us make, I think it's very important to understand what matters and what doesn't. And in general, we shouldn't suffer, right? I hope that none of us has to suffer at work.
Yeah. Now, as a female in a male dominated field, have you had to face certain challenges and obstacles to get to the place where you are?
I think I was very, again, lucky and fortunate to start my career at a company that was very conscious and intentional, looking for diversity and integrating people. So I started as, a 20-something-year-old in a corporate world in a company that my team was very balanced. We had actually more women than men. And I was never told by my family or by my work that I cannot do something. And then that helped me build my confidence. So I think when I did meet other experiences, right? And we all know that being a woman sometimes means that you need to go through things. So whenever that did happen, I already had that confidence. So it did not move me, right? I was very much aware of, okay, this is happening. That is external to me. I choose how to deal with it. And this will not shake my world, right? So I will overcome it. And again, I was very lucky to kind of be raised with that confidence coming from my parents, and also having the right support from my first workplace, and that allowed me to grow as much as I wanted and as much as I could for the first critical years of my career.
Right. And at some point, you were blessed with having a family, successful female business person, and you still traveled a lot.
Yeah.
Which is an integral part of what you do, right? You had to figure out how to balance life in that way. And you seem to be lucky enough to have a very supportive husband who also has a very time-consuming job, I understand. What does he do?
He's a doctor. He's an OBGYN doctor.
And at some point in your career, you were traveling every other week?
Yeah, I still do, actually. I still do. I was traveling when I was back in Israel. I traveled to the US every other week. And now I still travel every other week, but domestically, mostly. I go international every other month, once every other month. I'm going back to Israel next week.
That's crazy, man. Does it take a toll on you, or is there parts of the travel you like?
Dude, I have 4 kids. I did not sleep a full night in 8 years. Getting on an airplane, being able to grab my bottle of water and go to bed for 12 hours is the best experience ever. Like, I sleep on planes better than at home. That's my dream. Exactly.
So do I, by the way. When I was...
I'm just zoning out, and that's it.
Yeah. When I was doing LA a week a month, I would take the first flight out in the morning from New York, and I would just sleep. I would be asleep before the plane took off. I would wake up when the plane touched down, and I could go a full day. I could do meetings all day. In fact, there was one trip I did. You probably, with all the travel you've done, you may have done this. I landed in LA. I took several meetings, and I got on the 7 p.m. flight home the same day and just turned right around. But I didn't mind it. I loved it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? So you were passionate about what you did. And it's the same, because when you're passionate about what you do, that energizes you, and you almost don't see it as work, right? You enjoy doing what you do. 100%. And that's a big part of it. But yeah, sleeping on airplanes is great. And then doing fun meetings and things that matter to you right after is awesome.
Fun meetings. And, I kind of miss it. When I was running the production company and I was doing this type of travel, I would take these meetings that they were kind of networking meetings, getting to know people in person, going out to lunches, going out to dinners, and people complain about the food in LA. I guess it's just because I was there for business. They would take me to the greatest restaurants, and I made tons of friends through the business, which I've always loved. People I'm still in touch with, maybe not as often, but I consider them good friends. And that was all through work. And I loved it. And even now that I'm not networking as much in entertainment, but I am in now bread and baking and food, and I'm meeting new people and new friends the same way. And it's another reason I love this business of creating food and interviewing people or going to restaurants and doing collaborations with them. I get a kick out of the social that comes with the work. And that's kind of a dream for me.
So it sounds like you're an extrovert like me, right? Are you an extrovert?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't always consider myself an extrovert, although I think I've evolved more into an extrovert the older I got. I was painfully shy and afraid to have my voice heard early in my career because I suffered from imposter syndrome. Because I was 25 years old running a production company with no reason other than somebody trusting me in life and gave me the great opportunity to run that production company, but I didn't know what I was doing. But I did find generous people and mentors along the way to help me. So
yeah, which is very important. No, I agree. I mean, it sounds like in my simple brain, right? I think the way introverts versus extroverts, right? So extroverts usually we're energized by interaction with people. Like we need big crowds. We like to be the center of the party, right? Every time I go into a room, like, oh my gosh, look at how many people, how many opportunities to meet new people. And I'm like chatting my way through. While probably introverts, and I see it because I have a daughter who's very introverted. and 3 boys that are very extroverted, and a baby. We don't know where she's going to land yet, but and I see the difference, right? The boys are like, oh my gosh, I just met my new best friend. Like, what's his name? I don't remember. I just enjoy playing with him, and he's my new best friend. Right? While my daughter, you know, she needs to be close to somebody for 2 years until she can even call them a friend, let alone, kind of a best friend, right? So I think introverts are more into they are energized by one-to-one interaction, and they are probably terrified or out of their zone when they're in that kind of multi-packed environment.
It's very interesting to me because I don't know that it defines me, because I was always best at one-on-one business interactions, best one-on-one meals and dinners with somebody, and I could really connect with them. And that was the secret sauce to my networking while I was traveling. And I would get nervous in big crowds. I don't feel that way anymore, but it was definitely, even up into my early 40s, I think that was an issue for me. So I don't know if people change and evolve, or I'm just some weird hybrid of both an introvert and an extrovert. But I am definitely at the point now where I like to be the center of attention.
So I think it's both. I think, first of all, we evolve. And I did those like personality analysis. And when I look at what I got, like my results 20 years ago and my results now, they're like completely different. One of them is the ability to go deep into details and liking, and, crunching numbers. When I was starting my career in finance, the bar was very high on my ability to do that. And today it's like it doesn't exist, right? So I think we all adapt to what we need to do in our day-to-day.
Yeah.
And we evolve as people.
Absolutely. Now, you also mentioned to me one time that you have ADHD, which some of the brightest and most creative people in the world have. I certainly have a touch of it. I think we both have to multitask at what we do. I have to figure out workarounds on how to keep organized on all the things I have to do. And then on top of that, how to figure out how to prioritize those things so it doesn't become daunting and overwhelming and feel like, I can't take it. It's not, I can't deal with all this. And I guess over time, I've really learned to become patient. And as long as I have a system to keep the list so that I could glance at it every once in a while and know I'm not going to forget something. I know I'll always end up being accountable for whatever's on that list. It could be 100 things, but I have it all in one place. And as I finish them, I check them off. But I guess where I'm going with this, the one thing I've learned, especially since I started the bakery, is patience. And then, like, if there's 150 things on the list and I figure out what the priority is to work on, I am now able to work on that and block the rest out, which allows me to enjoy the moment of working on it. I think that's pretty important to trying to succeed when you have to multitask.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in reality, like, multitasking is hard. I don't want to say nobody can do it, right? I know I cannot do it because if I'm trying to do 3, 4, 5 things at the same time, I'm probably not paying enough attention to any of them. I think the beautiful thing about ADHD, right? I think with ADHD, it is hard. And I'm doing a lot of research about ADHD now because it's funny, but growing up with ADHD kind of wasn't an issue for me. I didn't know I have ADHD, and I was developing, like you said, those coping mechanisms and systems and patches to work around it. So today I can say my ADHD is probably a benefit because that helps me bring that innovation, creativity, and like I don't have a box I think inside of, like it doesn't exist in my terms. But one of my sons has ADHD and he struggles. So he's, he has different ways, right? Different appearances of the ADHD. So I started to read a lot about it. And I think one of the things that's very typical for ADHD is the microfocus or hyperfocus, right? Which is what you were mentioning. When it's hard for me to concentrate in probably most things in the world. But then when I do find something that I like doing, I can do that for hours and block everything in the world. When I read books, and that was, I love reading ever since I was very young. And when I read as a child, my mom could talk to me like literally here. I would not hear anything, right? I was all in the book. And I see it with my ADHD child. When he's doing his Legos and he's super concentrated, he will not go to bed, right? He will do Legos for 8 hours straight until he finishes that box of Legos that he has to go through. So I think it's kind of beautiful because it allows us to go very deep into something we're passionate about, right? Obviously, you need to balance that with real life, and sometimes you need to do other things as well. But it's very typical for ADHD, what you were describing.
And you discovered it only by looking into your son and reading, and you read the book and said, "Wait a second, they're talking about me."
Yeah, so I knew at some point around like in my 30s, just from comments and from people, from other people's observations, I realized that I have ADHD. It was not something I was aware of growing up. It was not a term I even knew exists, right? And then I'm like, okay, so I have ADHD still, not an issue. And then when my son was diagnosed, and at 6, his ADHD basically exploded. Right, he went from being a very active child to, an ADHD child, hard to manage, needs a lot of support. Right, there's different things that, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad that comes with ADHD, and that's when I started to read more, and a lot of the things made sense for me as well. Right, I never had to face my ADHD because most times I did not see it as a burden, but now as I read through what other people experience and other people's challenges with ADHD, then it became very familiar for me as well. Now it's my reason for it. Like when my husband speaks to me and I'm like, don't talk to me, I have ADHD. Like I cannot speak to you now. Or like, don't get upset with me, I have ADHD. It's almost like I have diabetes, right? If I told you I have diabetes, you would not be upset because I cannot eat that. So it's the same. Like, don't be upset because I'm, I can explode easily, or because I can react. I mean, we are very, I guess, impatient, and
right.
I'm very. It's like bad generalization, but I think we are impatient. We're a bit can be aggressive sometimes, right? And impulsive for sure.
Oof, you're talking about me. You're talking about me on every level. I think we should make a T-shirt that says, "Don't talk to me, I have ADHD." Exactly. I'd wear that.
Or like I get easily. I have a friend who said like I'm not aggressive. I'm just easily. I react fast to stupid people.
Yes, exactly.
Like I react fast to friends. Or like something like with react fast. Like, oh my gosh, that is so true. I just react super fast.
How much time do you take taking pitches in where people are presenting to you?
So again, I'm going to blame my ADHD that helps me think through things very quickly and take decisions very quickly. So usually I'm not the person that needs to kind of take things in and think about things for 2 days. I trust my intuition. Then I will go back to the numbers and the data and hear others' opinions and kind of piece everything together. But usually I'm very fast with taking decisions.
Right. But the companies, I guess you're approaching the companies because you know what the need is. Are they ever trying to convince you? Are they ever unprepared when they're pitching you? Like, how important is it for them to do their research?
I think it goes both ways, right? So it is my responsibility to share our exact needs and what we're looking to solve, so they can become prepared, so they can meet us when, as prepared as possible, right? And many times we have prep calls and, we brief them and we try to answer every question possible. And if they're asking for feedback on the presentation before they share it with the stakeholders, then we do that as well. So we really work with them to make sure that they understand our needs. Then it's up to them. If we've put in, the work and we've supported as much as we can, it's up to them. And yes, sometimes it's not the right solution and they try to convince you that it is. But if you are objective, right, if you've done your homework and you know what is the problem, and not only what is the problem, you also know what it takes to solve it. You know what the system architecture needs to look like, how the future solution will integrate with other solutions, what it needs to do, right? What are the KPIs? What are you expecting them to deliver? Then it's a very objective conversation and you can point them into kind of where they are relevant and where they are not. If that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah, it totally does. I thought, and I might be wrong on this, I read something where if you could personalize the pitch in the presentation, it makes it that much stronger. Have you talked about that?
Yeah, I did in one. Yes, I think personalized, not in the sense of, don't personalize to Anna or, Adam or, the next person. Personalized to your audience, meaning if you are, let's say, a startup and you are raising money and you're approaching a VC or a potential investor, then the story should be about why they would invest in you, right? Investors want to see a return on their money. You will talk about the opportunity, the size of the opportunity, maybe your financials, how you're planning to return their money, what will be the valuation, what will be the multiplier, right? Kind of what is your strategy? If you are pitching to a potential customer, the customer doesn't care about your valuation. They're not looking for a financial return. They care about how you're going to solve their problem. So even there, they are the experts on their problem. They probably know a ton. I mean, they live that every day, right? So address how you're going to do it. And then you're going to go very deep on the technology and how you're going to operationalize it, how you're going to approach their need, which is not relevant for an investor at all. An investor doesn't know the problem. An investor looks at, a completely different perspective or a different angle. And again, we're talking about the same startup. But so that is what I meant by personalizing.
Got it. And I guess solving a problem is always one of the most important things. Like when you're starting a business, no matter what area it's in, you should be thinking about what problem are we solving, right?
Yeah, it's about the
even
need.
In bread, I guess there's so many choices for people to buy bread. I know you buy bread at the supermarket right now. And an example of the problem there is you don't like the taste and the texture. Right. So somebody could come along and solve the problem by saying, I'm opening an artisan bakery that reminds people of European bread. That's an example of solving a problem, correct?
Exactly. And I think we saw, being in tech for a while now, some solutions, are cutting edge, but if they do not find a need, right? If there's no problem to solve, it doesn't matter how sophisticated the technology is, how many IP it has, or how much IP, or how many, it doesn't really matter. If you do not solve a need, nobody will pay for your tech, right? Nobody will buy your bread. If you do not make something other people want to buy, then they won't. Right. They won't spend money, and then you don't have a business.
Right. Can you share with us some of the other problems? I mean, you mentioned one thing to me in the past that I find fascinating. I don't know if you were kidding or not, but self-flying drones. Is that something you guys are looking into?
Yeah, that's actually something we're scaling across Latin America already and now going into Asia. Yes. So when you think of it, it's about, again, what was the need? The need is how do we early detect disease in plants? Right? Because you have a large field, you will not know that you have a sick plant. And then the moment it starts, it spreads very quickly. So the drones have visual technology on them. It's a regular drone. It's the same drone that you will buy basically and fly maybe with your kids, right? But it has visual technology, and then the cameras collect the data, and the secret sauce is in the AI. So the pictures go into a model that analyzes the data, and then it will give you early warning signs of disease in the plants, and then you can treat that plant before it spreads out.
Well, that's amazing. I was hoping, and I imagined that you were going to deliver a bag of chips or French fries with the drones. I thought that's what you guys were doing.
Well, we're not there yet. Maybe someday. There are companies, we're not there yet, but there are companies now that are working on delivering, hamburgers to rural US that does not have Uber Eats or Grubhub or whatever, right. 10 apps that I downloaded in the last 3 months to my iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah, we once did a fake video for Side Hustle that we thought was a parody with a drone delivering bread. We made it look using, camera tricks that the drone was actually delivering the bread, and everyone thought it was real. We're not there yet.
I'll send you the name of the company. There's a company already doing that. I think they're doing it in Texas.
Really? Oh, man. That's just amazing. I hope I get to see that in my lifetime. What about career advice? Do you have any advice for young people coming up, having gone through what you've gone through and succeeded tremendously? You have any words of wisdom for our young people who listen?
Oh my gosh, I wrote a post about it on LinkedIn but I don't remember what I wrote in there. So top of mind, I might say the exact opposite now, right? I hope not. But I think what helped me a lot, and we talked about it or we emailed about it, is mentors and speaking to other people, right? And that goes to different levels. So it can be people more experienced, more senior that went through your journey and have an interesting perspective, or people from other industries that have an interesting perspective from their journey, but also your peers, right? So your peers going through the same things. I'm just, again, me being an extrovert, I think out loud. So it helps me a lot to kind of talk and listen and have that interaction with people, because that helps me evolve my thinking. So speaking to whoever you think is interesting enough to speak to is something I encourage, right?
Absolutely.
Different roles you will learn about, different roles within your company, in other companies, and just learning and new people, new capabilities, new skills. I'm a hard worker, meaning my career or work, right, job was always something more than just a paycheck. I'm passionate about what I do. I don't want to say I will do it without getting paid, because that's not true, but I still need to feed 4 kids. But it's almost like I wake up passionate about going to work in the morning. I love my team. I love working with them. So I'm willing to put in a lot, whatever it takes, which means sometimes traveling every other week and not seeing your family for a whole week or for 50% of the time, or working crazy hours. And I think if you do what you like, you can pay the price, right? And that comes into a balance of how do you manage your work life. But to me, it's kind of all the same, right? I work all the time. I think of work all the time. I love my kids. I'm with them. I can think of work when I'm with them. But I'm passionate about what I do. I cannot stop being passionate about what I do. I cannot shut this down, right? So I think if I try to synthesize an advice is find something you're passionate about and then just work really hard to be good at it and to progress and learn and improve, right? Because I think if you have that, if you have the passion and you're a hard worker, then success will come.
I just relate to it more than you know. It's exactly how I led my life. It's exactly how I ran my production company. And I didn't know it all, but I put everything I could into it because I loved it. And it didn't feel like work. And I would wake up in the morning looking forward to it. And I still think about all the things I do. I do think about it, not just during work hours. I don't believe in work hours. I don't believe in, when I ran the production company, I didn't have vacation or sick days because I felt like people need to take off, they take off. I'm not going to limit them to 2 weeks. I'm not going to limit them to 10 days. If they love it here, they're going to be responsible and figure out how to do what they have to do. And when they need to take off, they take off. So, I don't know. Really interesting stuff, man. Really interesting. And I know you're jonesing for some good bread. I put together some, I got 3 bakeries for you. I want to mention them now in case any of our listeners live in Los Angeles. I think some of my media and Hollywood friends might know of these places and some others. There's a bakery called Republic. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
You got to check that one out. It's
wait, I want to write it down. Or you're going to send me. Will you send me after?
I'm going to email you all this.
Okay,
I'll
perfect.
definitely email you this. Republic, I think it's somewhere, it's over in the direction you live. There's another bakery called Friends and Family, and there's another bakery called Bub and Grandma's Bread. So these are 3 places in Los Angeles you can get amazing artisan bread. If our listeners are hearing this and you have some other thoughts and ideas, please send it to us. We'll make sure Anna gets it. And I'll also check them out next time I'm in Los Angeles.
And more than that, if anybody is planning to go to those places, reach out and then we can meet together. I'm always up for meeting new people, especially if they're your friends. Or your listeners. So, yeah,
I love that.
Let's meet for bread and coffee.
Oh, that's so generous of you. That's so cool, man. Thank you for taking the time. I was shocked you said yes to do this. I am a fan of everything you talk about on LinkedIn. You are an amazing person. You have the greatest disposition. I understand why you're so successful. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. And this was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure if my corporate comms team will approve of me speaking kind of off topic on a bread podcast, but I'm very happy they did.
That's amazing. All right. Thanks again.
Good. Thank you.
This episode of Bread for the People was brought to you by Side Hustle Artisanal Bread, Long Island's handcrafted bread company.